Welcome to Creating a Single Panel Cartoon, and this is Lesson 1, Determining Concept and Characters. Well, you made it to the first lesson, everybody. Welcome, and hope you're going to get your pencils ready and get things going here. Okay, so the objective of this lesson is to identify the key elements of a single panel cartoon, generate ideas for the cartoon, develop characters to populate that cartoon. So what is a single panel cartoon? I'm sure you guys have already know the answer to this question as you are in this lesson. You didn't just wander out of the deep and think this is portrait painting. A single panel cartoon, aka a gag cartoon, uses one panel to tell a joke or a story. They usually show a single funny scene with a brief dialogue or a caption underneath. It can be very simple, but still imply quite a lot. So there you go. There's your definition in a nutshell. And this is the anatomy of a single panel cartoon. For those of you playing at home, this is what it looks like. There's the title of the cartoon itself. That's one of the joys of creating the cartoon, is you get to decide what your title should be. There's going to be optional dialogue, usually in the upper portion of the cartoon. There's the illustration itself, which includes the background, foreground, and middle ground elements, like in the case of this Plato and Play-Doh cartoon that I created. And then, of course, you have the caption, which will be either in addition to the dialogue, or it could actually be the dialogue itself. It's interesting how that works. So the elements of the single panel cartoon, on the other hand, these are just the traits of it. This is different than the anatomy. They are clear and concise ideas, strong visual impact, a sense of humor, hopefully a sense of humor. I mean, some of the cartoons that I've come up with, it's debatable on whether I have a sense of humor or not. And of course, well-developed characters where available. Sometimes you'll have one-off kind of gag cartoons where the characters are not recurring. But in this one, we're going to deal with both the concept of a single panel cartoon in regards to one-off cartoons, as well as to create some recurring cartoon characters, just to handle both those eventualities. So now I want to go over brainstorming ideas for a cartoon, and here we'll talk a little bit about where you can get your inspiration from in developing a concept for the cartoon. So first of all, maybe you have a favorite hobby. Like I was thinking, if you're into cars, you can do a whole cartoon, one-panel cartoon based on all the things surrounding cars, like dealing with the customers if you're in service, dealing with people who deliver parts, what kind of parts are available for cars. You could even deal with the whole current event situation, which apparently is people stealing catalytic converters from the bottom of cars and reselling them for money. So this, secondly, is what makes you think, and that is, for instance, just something that you're interested in, something you're curious about, and you can always add some brainstorming ideas to that, like, comedians constantly have these observational and questionable type of cartoons and gags where they ask things like, why do we drive on parkways and park in driveways? And that kind of thing. Why is there valet parking at the Sizzler if you're in LA? There's observations that you're passionate about, things that you want to get down to the bottom of and kind of show the humorous and ridiculous nature and absurdity of them. There's your favorite genre of fiction. Perhaps that could be something. It could be a great, anything in pop culture could be something that's important in regards to inspiration to one-panel cartoons. And finally, I'd just like to ask a question for those brainstorming out there. What other topics would be great for a one-panel cartoon? So now we're going to move into recurring characters. And this is something else you want to think about as you're going through it. Because for a one-panel cartoon or single-panel cartoon, you definitely want to have characters in it for those recurring situations. So in developing your character, you'll decide what your character's species is, what their name might be, what are their personalities, their physical appearance, and their background. And we'll talk a little bit more about background in the next lesson. But in this one, you're just kind of coming up with the idea of a character, and then we'll move into backgrounds concerning that character in the next lesson. Begin sketching your character now, and I'll have a kind of overlay of that event. I'll a time lapse, if you will, of the process of creating a character and creating a character sheet. This will include like the character in numerous poses from front and back and side and 3/4 views, and hopefully you'll be able to use that, because once you can get your character down, it'll make the whole process of creating that character on a recurrent basis so much more easier. And I wish I had learned this back in the day. I often would just go half-cocked at the very beginning and have to go back and revise my characters. Finally, I wanted to add just one last thing. For those of you that are intimidated by the whole drawing process, if you look through a variety of cartoons, you'll see that there's a whole range of artistic ability associated with these cartoons. Some people just have stick figures in their cartoons, and you can do this as well. Please do not be intimidated by how elaborate or how simple a cartoon will look, because in the end, it really just comes down to your audience and you as to how detailed that should be. And to give you an example, I have one of the first characters that I ever created as a kid was a character named Al Davis, not to be confused with the owner or the previous owner of the Oakland Raiders. This Al Davis was a head with hands, and he basically was a pitchman for my cartoons. He would do a lot of commercials throughout my makeshift magazine that I created in a spiral notebook as a kid, and that has been kind of my lifelong friend throughout my life. And hopefully you'll create characters yourself that you will carry with you for a long time to come. And maybe you already have. So don't be too hard on yourself if you can't really get the whole character creation down to a science, and that you're having trouble creating different views. Just do what you can and keep moving forward and propelling yourself on to the next lesson. We'll be glad to see you there in lesson number 2, which is be on the whole subject of backgrounds.